Do you have any reluctant readers or disengaged readers in your classroom? I want to share with you something today that just might help. I want to talk to you about the idea of home run books. A home run book is a term that I first heard years ago from Jim Terlese, who I call him the father of read aloud. And he explained a home run book as that one book that when you read it, it propels you to read more and more books. It could be a book by a particular author, and then you want to read more books by that author. It could be the first book in a series, and then you just feel compelled to read the entire series. Maybe it's a topic, and you want to read everything you can about that topic. And what we know about avid reader research is that avid readers can usually cite some book in their history, in their literacy history, that was a home run book for them. For some people, that book happened when they were in early elementary. Some people, it wasn't until adulthood. But it's that one book that turns you into a reader. So I want you to first think about if you have a home run book, and then think about sharing that home run experience with your students. So let me first share my home run book, and then we'll talk about your students. So my home run book for me was this book, Helen Keller by Margaret Davidson. This is the actual original copy. When I was in third grade, I ordered this book from the Lucky Book Orders. And I will never forget the day that I was reading this book. I was sitting in my third grade classroom. I had finished some of my work, and I started reading this book, and I got so engrossed in the book that I didn't even realize the teacher had started teaching math class. I looked around, saw that everyone had their math books out. Of course, I put my book away, but then, just couldn't wait to get back to reading this book, and I devoured this book. I fell in love with Helen Keller. Well, after I read this book, it's a pretty short book, I wanted more. So I went to the library and I found more books about Helen Keller, and I read until there were no more books available. I went to my school library, I went to the public library. Then I started reading books about Helen Keller's teacher, Annie Sullivan. When I ran out of those books, then I started scanning the biography section of the library and noticed that there were all these biographies, these stories about these young girls who turned into be strong, inspirational, influential women. So I read their biographies. And when I ran out of those books, I started reading books about boys who grew up to be these inspirational men. And so this one book opened the world of reading to me in a way that no other book ever had. I can say that even though I was a reader before this is the book that turned me into a true reader. This home run book really has followed me throughout my life. I've always had a fascination with Helen Keller. I used to read this book to my students as a read aloud every single year, and then we would watch the old version of The Miracle Worker together, that old black and white version. And so I would share my story with my students that this was my home run book. And then I would say, my job as your reading teacher is to help you find your home run book. So as I said, this has followed me throughout my life. I want to show you some of the books. My daughter, actually, she's grown up now, and one of her hobbies is going to used bookstores. And every time she goes to a used bookstore and sees a book by Helen Keller, she picks it up for me. So I now have this whole collection of books. Here's a most recent one. She was actually in Chicago recently, and she found this beautiful picture book about Helen Keller, and I still have the sticky note on it. Last year for Christmas, she even found me a Christmas ornament, a Helen Keller Christmas ornament that I hang on my tree. So you can see that this home run book for me that happened when I was 8 years old has really been a part of my life, throughout my entire life. So let's think about our readers. What if you don't know what they're passionate about? What if you don't know what's going to be the thing that will spark them? I would never have known that Helen Keller was the thing that would turn me on to reading. So we have to explore, we have to try thing after thing. I read a study once that was done on 66 highly professional people who had a few things in common. They all struggled with reading or were disengaged readers as children. And somewhere in their lifespan, they became readers. They became avid lifelong readers. And when they were interviewed, these people said that there was someone who got some kind of reading material into their hands. For one man, it was lawnmower repair manuals. That was the thing that turned him into a reader. That was his home run reading material. So I want you to think about your students this year. I don't want us to leave any stone unturned. We need to just try to get reading material into our students' hands until we find something that it just sparks them, and encourage them to be on the lookout for their own home run books. So we'll help them find them, but also encourage them to find their own. So call to action for you. I'd like you to first think about your own home run book. Then second, share that story with your students. And third, leave no stone unturned. Try to help your students this year find their home run books so that they can be turned on to a lifetime of passionate reading.